Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' relationship has gone without major drama since the two took office in January, but it did not start out that way, as we'll all remember. Harris, of course, attacked Biden over his stance on busing in June 2019, when Biden reportedly told, quote, Buttigieg, well, quote, that was some bullshit. Democratic strategist Andrew Feldman and culture editor at The Federalist, Emily Jasinski, they join us now to discuss, I think it might be the first F-bomb I've ever intentionally dropped on Rising. I know there's been a few unintentional ones. What do you think, Emily, just about this one? Because it's not just about what Biden said, but also Jill Biden saying, go f*** yourself, about Kamala to a lot of different people after that happened. I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm actually, honestly, it's just sad that Joe Biden didn't feel comfortable saying some version of this in public, because I think what's super interesting is when you look at, and Harry Ensign did a great piece on this, like halfway through the Democratic primary, showing how big this sort of like boomer contingency in the Democratic primary voter base actually was. People who actually would say they're sick of political correctness or they're sick of making everything racial. I forget exactly what the question was. You can go back and look, but that basically there's this anti-PC chunk that's pretty big of the Democratic base. Mm-hmm. And when you have, this story isn't totally about political correctness, but it is sort of what you can see Jill Biden getting at in her frustration there, which is that, I'm sorry, you're going to call him a racist after he's done all of this stuff over the course of his career. Do you actually substantively believe that? I know she made a point to say that I don't believe you are a racist, Joe. But the implication, it's do you substantively believe the implication? And what's so fascinating about this story is that you can see the political wheels turning and the calculations being made behind the scenes based on the reporting about how this was all a calculated political move. Wasn't a dumb one, but it was one that Joe Biden sort of, I think, echoed frustration that a lot of people would have.
Definitely worked.
Yeah, look, Andrew, what do you think? I actually think it was one of the top moments for Kamala Harris's campaign when she made that busing comment. It really put her back on the map in a campaign that was kind of flailing at the time, and Joe Biden was caught off balance and didn't really know how to react. I'll just say one thing, and I don't know what you all think. Good for
good
for Jill Biden for having her man's back.
I agree.
Remember, Jill Biden's a Philly girl, Colin. I mean, she is.
Yes, sir.
She is no hold bar, and you know, look, this is not a surprise story. We have heard up to the day Kamala Harris was selected as vice president that it may not happen because of how upset Jill Biden was about this. And, you know, how could someone do this that was so close to Beau Biden, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not, I read this. I love the anecdotes coming out in Edward Isaac Stover's forthcoming book. But this isn't a new story, right? Everyone heard back in before the convention what was at stake here. But look, Kamala Harris, she landed that punch really well on that stage. I mean, I remember, just thinking that this is the demise of Biden's campaign. I don't know how, he is going to bounce back. But what we saw quickly after was that Kamala Harris didn't know how to handle the heat that came. She didn't actually have a position on busing. And so how do you make a hit like this and then actually agree with Joe Biden on busing? It's pretty baffling.
You're taking me back. Those are some fun times on this show if we go back and rewind. Emily, if you think about it, Jill probably should have said that out in public. I remember whenever Trump went after Ted Cruz's wife, and he was like, you're a sniveling coward. I was like, dude, look into the camera and say, go F yourself. Like, that is something that I would respect. I think everybody would respect. And the muted response that he had, I was like, dude, you can't let somebody get away with that. Like, no matter what. And so in a way, I think you're right, as in they probably should have done this publicly and actually would have worked out better for them with a lot of the Democratic base.
Oh, I agree completely. Yeah, I think it totally would have. And I think that's sort of the struggle of establishment politics. And this is on both the right and the left, is not understanding how just regular people who don't work in politics and have the privilege not to work in politics react sort of viscerally to things like that. I mean, sure, you're going to have the K-hive, come after Biden, whatever, and defend Kamala Harris vigorously. But that's what the political establishment sees in their newsfeed. And I think that's real life. Yeah. When in reality, it's not representative of real life. So they totally should have come out and said, go after yourself. Maybe they could have said it differently because that's not sort of in line with Dr. Jill Biden's image. But, that would have actually been a great moment. But instead, we have this moment that is very representative, I think, of the dynamic in Democratic politics. Establishment not totally getting the base. And then the establishment also trying to play to the progressive wing. And it was an electric moment, but I don't think anybody handled it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, look, and Andrew, I don't know what you think. I think people love real human emotion, and that's the struggle, as you bring up, between modern-day politics and politics of the slick and emotionless that people have been operating by for a lot of years. When people see that, hey, there's a real human or couple of humans behind these slick politicians, they see something they can grab onto.
Look, and that's what you get from Joe Biden. You think about the moments in the campaign. You think about when he met that young boy Braden who stuttered like he did in New Hampshire. He became a staple of the campaign. But that was a real moment. That wasn't a staged moment, right? And that is who Joe Biden is. The fascinating thing here is I know Emily, mentioned that Joe Biden may have played this differently. He seemed to have played it right? He seemed to understand the Democratic electorate. Look at black voters throughout that primary, right? They didn't go near Kamala Harris.
Sure.
So, it was just fascinating to see. I really thought this was going to be a moment where Biden was going to lose some support with black voters. It just didn't stick.
Yeah, I remember at the time, even discussing about black support for Kamala being so low was considered heresy. But maybe that's why our show did so well.
You couldn't get off talking about Pete, though.
Okay. All right, guys. We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. More Rising for everybody right after this.